Using the Invoq Bake Oven is a lot about creating that perfect climate control. So when you want to build the crumb, when you want the bread to rise in the oven, you want that perfect climate.
Hello and good day to this Invoq webinar. Here from the home of Invoq, it's myself, Rasmus, Head of Product Management, and my colleague Jens.
Yeah, hello guys. My name is Jens Bach, and I'm a part of the culinary development team here at the Home, where we build and develop the Invoq oven.
The agenda for today is that we'd like to introduce you to this new Invoq oven range, which serves many different segments. And the focus today is specifically about the Invoq Bake, where we're going to take you through artisan bake. We're going to take you through frozen products, proving functionalities, features like BakeTimeCorrection that helps you ensure the same quality every time. And then we're going to explain a little bit about how the climate control can help you get evenness, but also make it possible to add snacking as a part of your portfolio when you are baking. Jens, you're the specialist here. Sourdough, could you introduce us to sourdough and what the topic's going to be about?
Yeah, so our first topic today is learning to bake artisan bread in your Invoq Bake Oven. So we've made a video that will show you a sourdough recipe and how we use the recipe to control the steps on the bake. So you get an even bake and a precise bake every time.
So you actually can see what it does to make a program with preheating, the right humidity setting to create the climate for the sourdough to come up and be the flavor, the taste, and the look and feel that you want to have it.
Sourdough is a special product for many bakers around the world, and we want to treat it as that. So for baking sourdough bread in my Invoq Bake Oven, I'm going to use our steel sheet, and it's a non-stick, really nice surface. It's pretty heavy actually, so it's going to keep a lot of heat, and it's going to build that crust for the bread very, very well. I'm going to preheat it with my preheat set as the recipe I'm going to use. And for this sheet, we have actually two functions. I can turn it around, and I have a nice griddle for grilling steaks or whatever. And the flat side is perfect for pizza, or in this case, my sourdough bread. Let's quickly go through the recipe for our sourdough. Here I choose my recipes and I go to my favorites. And here at the home of Invoq, of course, we have a sourdough Invoq loaf. First of all, as you notice, this is a very, very simple recipe. It often is for artisan bakes. I have my one baking step, but of course I have my preheat set as well. So the oven is going to preheat to 260 degrees. And then I have my loading step, and we go to convection. As you see here, I bake my bread at 220 degrees, 60% fan speed. It's sort of a medium fan speed setting here. I have my closed valve and 30 seconds of humidity from when I close the door and start the recipe. So as you see here also, there's a symbol here set VOT. This is the valve opening time function. I'm using that because I want to simplify my recipe here. So if we go into editing, I can show you what the function is. In editing the steps, as we know, it's like setting a manual cooking step, so I can choose my temperature, my time, fan speed, valve, and humidity. As you see here next to the valve symbol, I have a 15-minute sign showing here. Here I can choose increments of minutes. This allows me to choose how much time in the end of the recipe step there will be with an open valve. So I'm going to choose this to be set at 9 minutes. That means for the first 15 minutes of my cooking step, I have a closed oven cabinet. The valve is closed, so I'm going to keep all the humidity that I start spraying in at the beginning. This will allow the bread to rise properly without setting the crust too quick. And it will build the crumb. But after the crumb is set and the bread has risen to the desired size, I want to start building the crust, and I want to create that beautiful Maillard reaction that's going to build the taste in the crust. That is why we use the valve opening time for artisan bread. Baking sourdough and artisan breads in the Invoq Bake oven is very, very easy. And we have the possibility to heat the oven in the preheat function to 300 degrees Celsius. This allows us to do a very, very high temperature bake, even though it has a side function as a combi oven as well. So the chamber can get really, really hot, and we can start off all the colorization and the Maillard reaction we need to build the flavor and crust in our breads.
So just quickly before we move on, we forgot to say in our introduction that of course we welcome any questions during this webinar. It's going to be a lot of information, some of it a little bit technical. So please put your questions in the chat, and also we welcome any suggestions for future topics or webinars.
Yeah, and put the questions in as we go, as the questions come up, but we'll also make a Q&A session as the last part of the webinar today. But this was artisan bake.
Yes.
Sourdough.
This was the first topic today. So as we see, using the Invoq Bake oven is a lot about creating that perfect climate control. So when you want to build the crumb, when you want the bread to rise in the oven, you want that perfect climate. So you need the humidity to not set the crumb too quickly, but still at the end we want to build that caramelization of the flour and the sugars in the bread to give that nice taste that we all know and love from sourdough bread.
So it actually gets that bake oven feel,
Exactly.
but you still get that nice caramelization, and you used a program to do this with.
Yes, I used the recipe because I want the setting in the oven where it doesn't matter if I bake 1 or maybe 15 breads in the oven at a time. I still want the same result all time.
So basically it was built up with a preheat so that we have the power in the oven when we load it. Then you load it, and then the oven automatically takes the next step, so you don't need to remember what your perfect setting was. No. And then you can replicate it again and again.
And having a function, the Invoq Bake oven, where it also functions a little bit like a combi oven, the oven is built to keep that pressure a lot more than your classical deck oven. So we have a lot greater control of the humidity during the bake.
Another thing that we can actually do in the oven and making it a multifunctional piece of equipment is that we can do proving. So exactly. The raising of bread. Yeah. Can you explain some of the benefits of controlling that in the oven?
Yeah. So for the proving in the oven, of course, we have a preset program that comes standard from the factory. Very easy to use, but you can also set that as you wish to your own settings. The benefits of proving in the combi oven is that you can do everything in one step. So even for some bread types of bread like focaccia or maybe lighter white breads, you'll be able to put in your unproven bread, prove it, and bake straight from the get-go. So it's a simplification, and it will save you time and logistics in your bakery.
But you actually made a small video for this, right?
Yes, of course.
Let's see a small video about proving in an Invoq Bake oven.
We also have a prove and bake function. So the oven has a proving step, and it can be set as well in the recipes if you want to. This allows you to do a single step recipe where you load your product in and you let it prove, change to heating, and finish baking your product. It's not for all breads and all products, but for many things like a focaccia or lightly proofed products, it's a very, very good opportunity to save some time when baking.
So that was just a short video about the proving function in the oven.
And one of the things I think you can see here is the humidity. Here was not too many products in the oven, so we add humidity, but the benefit of proving with humidity is actually that you accelerate a little bit the function, right? So it gets there a little bit faster than standing just out on the table.
Yeah, and it's a more controlled process because you set the temperature in the oven as well. This was proved at 32 degrees, I believe, and it gives you a lot more control to repeat your good results in the bakery every day.
That is nice to ensure the quality of the products that comes out every time, no matter who's loading it. But you also want it to be even when you then bake. I think that's crucial when you bake, that you can sell all products that comes out of the oven.
Exactly. And as a short introduction to the next topic we're moving on to, we're going to talk about the even bake in the Invoq Bake oven. And here we want to tell you a little bit more about the climate control that we shortly mentioned earlier. Having a very, very nicely insulated oven cabinet with a triple glazed door in the front, we make sure that the cabinet is very, very stable in temperature. But also using the humidity when we're baking with all the sensors, we control the environment so we get an even bake every time.
So here come 2 videos about even bake, but also a little bit about how the climate control works.
We're cooking our profiteroles, and for making them we have to do our pâte à choux, classic French pastry. So first of all, I need a bowl for my flour and a sieve, because I need my flour sieved before I add it to my milk and butter. So I have a bowl here and I have my scales. Put that on. And to be honest, any regular baking flour will do, as long as it's a nice quality. So I'm gonna do my 600 grams here. Let's move on to measuring our eggs. I'm gonna get the scales ready. For this batch today, I'm making quite a large amount, because I want to show you guys how a full oven of profiteroles looks in the new lovely Invoq Bake. We can get a perfectly even result on all 6 trays on these 600 by 400. So I've also planned to use my silicone mat. I like this instead of the baking paper, because it doesn't give me any chance of folding or whatever that will move about the products on the tray, and it doesn't disturb the airflow across the tray. So I get a nice even bake, and it's very, very easy clean after my production. So I can bake again and again and again during the day. So let's get on to measuring out the eggs. Here we are with our pâte à choux, our mix for the profiteroles. So I'm going to pipe them up in the size that I've chosen. And it's actually a slightly smaller profiterole than you would normally do, because my plan with these is to serve them with an ice cream dessert and chocolate sauce. And so when piping, I make sure that I have enough spacing between for the air to get around. So I will get a nice even cook and bake. And I can still fill my oven with 6 baking trays, 600 by 400. And because of the silicone mats, I'm also pretty sure that I will get an even cook, because it won't fold or misbehave because of the fan speed in the oven. So we're going to start the recipe off at pretty low fan speed to get the pastry to start cooking and rising, and then we're going to increase the fan speed and the temperature a little bit to set the crust when they're ready for that. Just like every TV kitchen, we've cheated a little bit, and I've frozen these beforehand. but I just want to show you that the recipe works perfectly, even if you do them from frozen. They've been in the freezer overnight, uncovered, and now we're going to bake them as a fully loaded oven. And of course, we're going to do a nice time-lapse video so you can see them bake as well. Some fan speed, and the climate control gives you a perfect heat and airflow in the oven. So whether you're using manual or automatic cooking functions, you will always get a great result.
That was a little bit about Even Bake, and Jens, you actually showed a quite difficult product to show Even Bake on. You showed profiteroles.
Yeah. So what we want to show when we use stuff like profiteroles, eclairs, or maybe macaroons in these videos is that we have a very, very stable climate in the oven. And you can use all the functions of a normal bake oven in the Invoq Bake oven.
And there's a few questions coming in. Thank you for that, and please continue. And some of them is actually a bit related to what we've just seen. So can I do frozen pastries in the oven? You actually did that in the video.
Yes. So as we see in the video, I'm very, very comfortable with putting frozen product in the oven. Again, we can use a little bit of humidity to open up that defrosting quicker, but many times it doesn't need to happen. But it can be done if you want to do frozen croissants or maybe
Danish pastries.
Danish pastry, for instance, is a very good.
And I think the climate control here helps us ensure that the climate inside the cavity, whether it needs to be added humidity or we need to have some dehumidification going on, we can make that. There's another question here saying, can I bake without the fan? And we actually did with low fan, but not completely without.
So we can turn the fan down a lot. So we have nine different settings, and the lowest step is 20%. And this is what we use when we bake delicate products like macaroons, small thin biscuits, or the profiteroles in this setting. With the reversal of the fan, every now and then we make sure that the heat and the evacuation of humidity in the oven is constant and the same throughout the cabinet.
And actually, if there are some products where you think we like to have that amount of humidity in the beginning and we like it to settle on the dough, in the recipes you can actually program it to pause the fan for a certain time so that the humidity can sit in the surface before we start the baking.
Exactly.
Can you prove and bake with sourdough?
Yeah. So again, as we mentioned before, sourdough is a special product, and for specifically sourdough, we will always recommend that you have a really, really hot preheated oven and your sourdough ready to bake from proving. Actually, a lot of times you will prove sourdough, of course, in a cold climate. So we want that shock effect from when the sourdough hits the oven or the baking sheet, as we use today, because we want to start building that beautiful bread. So proving and baking in the same step with sourdough is not a good idea, but many other recipes for that.
And taking off a little bit from the first video you showed with the sourdough, where you used the VOT, the valve opening time. And that's a feature we have added that you can build that into one of your steps so that the oven in the last phase of a step actually automatically opens the air intake and evacuates the steam to create this crust. And we have made a small video explaining a little bit more in depth to this technical part of making a recipe.
valve opening time. We also call it VOT. It's a functionality that you can build in to your recipe steps, so that you in the end of a step can open the exhaust, pull in some air to remove the humidity from the chamber very rapidly. For baking products, this gives you the crust and the color, the caramelization of your pastries to be that wow when it comes out of the oven, to support you generate more business.
Valve opening time, that's a technique that you can use building your programs to fit your perfect products every time. On top of that, we also have the BakeTimeCorrection, or the BTC functionality. And this is a functionality we have designed to help you always get the same product out every time. So that means that if the door has been open for too long, or you have loaded more product than the program was designed for, the oven can actually help you compensate for that, ensuring that you still have perfect outcome of the products. Anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that remember that the bake time correction function gets even better with a bigger oven. So when we talk about our role in units in bigger productions, BTC is even more important, because there's a big difference between loading just one tray or maybe 20 full trays of frozen product. So we need that bake time correction to ensure the evenness of our product every time.
And the bigger oven, the more products, the more important that it comes out perfect every time. Bake time correction, we'll show you a small video about that here, and then add questions, because we know this is technical, so if there's any clarification, we're ready to answer them.
Bake time correction is actually a part of adaptive baking, where the oven helps you regulate if your operators make tiny mistakes. It could be that they load in a cold oven. The bake time correction will correct for this and add some time to ensure a consistent quality of your products. It could also be opposite, that it automatically regulates if you've put fewer products in the oven, and thereby the temperature of the preheat have been too high.
Bake time correction helps you ensure the same quality every time, and actually compensates also for less or more product loaded into a program. Some questions have already come in to the chat. We'll now open up for the final questions, and then we will revert back to answer those as the final Q&A of this session. So please put in your questions now, and then we will revert and answer them in a second. Some questions came in here, Jens, yes. And I think some of them is for you to answer. Can I use this oven instead of my deck oven?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And yes, you definitely can. We are very, very comfortable with using the Invoq Bake oven instead of the deck oven, especially if you start using some of the accessories that we've suggested today.
So and I actually think that is using some of these special accessories that can create that deck oven stone bake effect when preheated, and that actually leads into that this is a multifunctional oven that can do more. And we actually designed a multi-rack for the purpose of, if you want to use some of these special trays, you can do snacking in the afternoon and baking in the morning. So
exactly, so you can use smaller trays and bigger trays, heavy trays and light trays, perforated if you want, in the same rack. Yeah. And again, comparing to the classical deck oven, one of the advantages of having the Invoq Bake is that the oven is also built to keep in that humidity or evacuate it very fast. So where you would get a slight steaming function to help you a little bit in the deck oven, we have a lot more control, and it's in our nature to use humidity when we're baking and cooking.
Yeah, and sensors to actually regulate this
Exactly.
with the Lambda sensor technology.
Exactly.
Can I set the oven to automatic startup? I assume this means in the morning before I come in.
Yeah.
And for bake, that could be.
Yeah, exactly. We know for bakers all around the world, it's very important to have an even result, and we know that it's important to have a completely heated oven before you start your production. So yes, there is a timer function that's actually very easy to access, where you can set a timer, and then the oven, even though it's shut down after care cycle use, it will power up again automatically in the morning.
So save power while sleeping and ready for you to get in.
Exactly.
So if you have a morning program you need to get through, the oven can be preheated without staff being on site, and then they can just come in and put directly into the oven when they come in. Is the bake time correction a standard feature? Yes. Everything we show you of functionalities in the oven are standard features. So we want the oven to help and support you, making your daily life easier. So bake time correction is a standard feature, allowing you to get the same quality every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How often do I need to wash the oven?
Yeah. So common question about this, and we recommend a daily light wash. We also have the turbo program, so during the day, if you get a lot of crumbs or leftovers in the oven, you can do a quick flush.
But we actually haven't touched base on this, so we
No,
have
exactly.
not talked about the care cycle function. So maybe just shortly introduce what care cycle is and what it does for our users.
Yeah. So our care cycle system is our washing system, and we have different settings that you can use. It's very easy with just one tablet of chemicals for every wash. The first, we have a light wash that's a little less than half an hour. Then we have a 1 hour wash, a medium wash, and you can choose an intense rinse as well if you want to. And on top of that, we have 2 eco programs that will help you save power, water, and chemicals in your daily use.
So it's a recirculating system where you add in a tablet, and there's just popped up a question in the chat saying, do I need a special cleaning tablet? Yes, you do. We have designed a tablet specifically for this cleaning cycles. It's green, phosphate free, but it's also made so it can resist the heat and thereby enable the faster speed cleaning times, etc. And it actually saves, compared to our previous model, up to 70% in running cost for a medium cleaning cycle. Yeah. So it is worth cleaning it every day, and also make sure that you have a clean oven. When you do bread, and especially high temperatures with sourdough, you do have flour that burns in the base of the oven, and there the turbo wash could be a nice one before doing creme brulees.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're doing pastries like Danish pastry or whatever, there might be leftovers of nuts or curds and custards, caramel, that might spill over into the oven, and you'll need a turbo clean before you move to the next product.
Looks like that was the last question. From the Home of Invoq, we would like to thank you for participating. Please follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and invoqoven.com. And stay tuned for the coming webinars. We have one more tomorrow, and next batch of webinars coming up in May.
Yeah. Happy
Thank
to see
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.